So let's maybe invite the man of the hour here. So we have Akshay with us today. So who's the co-founder of FITPASS. So maybe before we deep dive into FITPASS, right? So I think he has a very strong academic credentials, like studying from St. Stephen's to Oxford to whatnot, like Columbia, right? So he has had a very interesting stint in terms of academics, and then I think he's went out to be an investment banker for quite some time before returning back to India. And nevertheless, good that he came back to India and he stepped into the startup forte. Now he has had a couple of other entrepreneurship experiences, but now currently with FITPASS, so where he has more than 5 lakh members, right? So without any further ado, before we even have the conversation, Akshay, first of all, thanks for making it to the session, and welcome you on behalf of everyone.
Thank you very much, guys, for having me here and for making the time.
Right. So Akshay, let's get into FITPASS, but before that, if you step back, right? So I mentioned about your credentials. So what made you step into entrepreneurship?
Actually, it was by accident. I had come back to India on a sabbatical. I wasn't meant to stay. And I was supposed to go back to London to where I was working. But many things, and as it happens with most people, I believe that you see an opportunity, you feel a problem, and then you try and solve it. And you try and solve it just for yourself, but then you realize the problem is actually bigger. And then you try and learn more about it, and then the problem fascinates you so much that you try and devote all your time and knowledge to solving it. So that's what happened. I came back, I was on a sabbatical. I used to be a very active fellow. I used to play football for Delhi State. I used to play football for St. Stephen's College. I played football for my college at Oxford, which is Oriel. So I was generally somebody who was physically active. I also played cricket for the university. So when I come back to India on a sabbatical, it was just very difficult to stay active. Even if you went to the park to run, there would be an auntie in the middle of the track who would let you pass, or there'll be kids kicking up dust. So there was it was just, and if you went to a gym, the gym guy would be like, "You pay me for the whole year." And I was like, I go to the same hairdresser every 3 weeks for the last 15 years, but he's never asked me to pay for the whole year. There's nothing in my consumption basket that I pay for upfront and then utilize later. So I thought that was very awkward. And then my co-founder, who's also my sibling, she was facing a similar issue. So we decided to solve that problem. And then first we thought, okay, we're facing the problem, we should solve it. Then we realized many people are facing the same problem. And then we realized people in India thought that India didn't want to get fit, and which we thought really weird because the pricing was such that people couldn't afford it. So it was like saying that back in the day, people didn't want to travel by airlines. But until airlines became affordable, people thought that you would have thought that there was no demand for airlines. But the moment Deccan and all these guys came, disrupted it, made it affordable, suddenly people shifted. So that's when we decided the problem was too big not to solve. And then, yeah, my sibling quit World Bank, I quit UBS, and then we both started this.
Wow, inspiring. Akshay, so which was your first venture? What was FITPASS your first venture, or did you have any other venture before FITPASS?
So FITPASS is my first full-time entrepreneurial venture. Before that, I've dabbled as an investor in various things. Skill Hippo was one. I'm also currently an angel investor in a logistics startup, in healthcare, in insurance, insurtech. And I had a social venture, I still have it, which was actually, to be honest, the first thing I started with. And then FITPASS came about later. So it's called Agratam India Social Ventures. This is to work with unproductive waterlogged land in Bihar, and we convert this wasteland into profitable fish farms. But that is a social venture. It is not, the motive is not for profit.
Understood. Perfect. So, Akshay, this question I generally ask everyone, right? All entrepreneurs, and even I sometimes ask myself, right? So, because see, when we are in a high-paying job like a investment banker or a private equity guy, right? So, where on every first of the month salary hits your bank account, right? And suddenly you go for a transition. Okay, from tomorrow I'm going to be an entrepreneur, where rather I'll have to give people money, and my money completely depends on the customers. So how did you handle that transition in terms of getting into entrepreneurship life?
So I used to work in leveraged finance and private equity. So I was what they used to call in parlance as the LBO guy. So LBO is what we used to do day in, day out. So entrepreneurship is something I obviously had a ringside view of, because I was investing in a lot of entrepreneurs and we were working with them to grow their business, to figure out strategy, to face daily problems. But yes, it's very different to sit on the ringside and then to be in the ring yourself. I think one large factor for being able to take the plunge was education. I firmly believe that education is the biggest cushion most of us have. So the fact that we're educated, the fact that we have skills that are translatable also allows us to take risks, because if we do not, then who will? And you know that your worst case scenario is that you will come out of 2 years of experience, way more experience than an MBA would teach you. I get to speak at a lot of IIMs, a lot of international business schools, including Oxford, Columbia, etc. But I say the same thing, that 2 years of entrepreneurship teaches you way more than an MBA does. And the payoff in terms of learning is better. And in case your startup succeeds, the payoff in terms of monetary value is better. So I don't know why people go to business school. If you have that money, your return on investment is better if you do your own startup. So I think education was the biggest cushion, which helped us take this plunge. And obviously then conviction on your own ability, conviction on the fact that what you're solving is a real problem, conviction on the fact that you're willing to back yourself to put in whatever is required to make it work, right? So I think that mindset was important, to be fully convinced. And once the mindset is there, then education gives you the cushion.
Absolutely, Akshay. And I think when someone is passionate about certain thing, right? So irrespective of how the situations are unfavorable to a person, still he tends to adapt to it, right? Because it is willingly that he's doing it. So rightly said. Akshay, maybe in your initial, I would maybe break your journey. You have been an entrepreneur in FITPASS and for 8 years, right? So if we break the journey, 7 years, sorry. If you have been 7 years, so if I break the journey into 2 years, right? So what would be your key one challenge in different parts of your entrepreneurship journey?
Okay, so this is a candid conversation, right? So
Absolutely.
when we start, okay, fine. So when we started in 2015, September, when we came out as a web-only product, no app, 3 or 4 people in the team, we wanted to see if this works, right? And that time, India was still solving for roti, kapda, makan. This is 2015. Roti, I mean, food tech was getting solved, Zomato, Swiggy, there were people like Fasos, Tiny Owl, a bunch of these guys who were getting funded. Nobody had solved it. Nobody knew how big the problem was, but roti was getting solved. In Kapda, there was Myntra, Jabong, a bunch of these fashion e-tailers. In Makan, there was housing.com, Common Floor, 99 Acres, Magic Bricks, I'm forgetting. So India was literally solving for basic stuff. In that, there were 2 of us and a team who were trying to say that fitness is something that needs to be democratized, and it is something that needs to be made easily available and accessible to people. Indians thought of fitness as a luxury item. Okay, so that was a big problem, to help people understand that fitness is actually a basic good. It is not a luxury good, but it will only become basic if a tech-led, asset-light, capital-efficient model comes and disrupts the industry. So that was our first problem in 2015, where people did not see fitness as a category or as a big enough problem. 2016 and 2017 obviously were landmark years in our economy. 2016 saw demonetization, 2017 saw GST being implemented. So demonetization, while it did not have a direct impact on our business because we were an online business, it had a major impact on our supply side, where gyms were largely a cash business. So it saw them going through some suffering, which consequently led to us suffering. 2017 GST meant we were moving from a service tax regime where our service tax was 15% to now suddenly becoming 28% initially, because again, it was thought to be as luxury, then to 18%. Either which way, this was a 3 to 13% increase in cost, which had to be passed to the user, which had to change various ways you worked as a business. Yeah. So those things happened in 2017. 2018 and 19 saw us grow very rapidly as India, as the fintech space also started booming. India started opening up, RBI started opening up to recurring payments. A lot of subscription businesses started doing well, Netflix, Spotify, Ghana, everybody who was facing problems before subscription was allowed, which was basically you had to get the customer to pay you every month. So generate an OTP every month and basically reconvince the customer every month. That moved to subscription, that once the customer is convinced, they can stay with you. So 18-19 saw significant growth. March 20 to November 21, we were in lockdown. That saw a different phase. And then after lockdown, the mindset shifted completely. So what 2015 saw, where people thought Roti Kapda Makan was all that India cared about and Swasth was not. Today, Swasth is paramount, from the Prime Minister launching a Fit India campaign to everybody talking about their own wellness. So suddenly, these 7 years have seen a dramatic shift.
So, I mean, I think this captures the cycle, right? So the boom and the bear market, what we call, right? So, and every business is driven by cycles. So I think it's very evident that from any large corporate to any new entrepreneur's journey, obviously will have this cycle. And that's very well put out by you, Akshay. Akshay, for the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to step into my investor shoes and ask you little tricky questions which generally investors ask the startups, right?
Okay.
So, Akshay, in 2015, yes, obviously your model was unique, your model was different, and you had the moat, right? But as time progressed, right, with large companies hiring off and then starting off large startups, or large startups getting funded heavily, right, like your cult and other things, right? So what was your reaction to it when a lot of startups, or when the space is so-called becomes a very, very competitive space, right? No longer like a unique or a winner's take market, right? So how did they handle that, and how do you do that?
It's a very good question. It's a question that we got asked repeatedly. Okay, so first in 2015, when we started, we had 18 or 19 people who copied our model straight away. Like within a month, we had 19 competitors. So we were called FITPASS. We're still called FITPASS. We had people called ClassHop, MyFlexiPass, ClassVerse, Fitness Panda, Oyo Fit. A bunch of these guys came, right? And most of them copied our terms and conditions also. So if you went to their terms and conditions, you still say FITPASS. FITPASS. Okay. And before we stepped into the industry, in London, there is a company called Fitness First, which is a global chain. They had gone bankrupt. They couldn't pay back a loan of £1 billion. I had restructured that deal with BC partners in Oak Tree, who are now members of Cult, because Cult bought the India franchise of Fitness First. So because of that deal, I understood how gyms worldwide operate. And fitness being a large category, gyms' assets had never become a unicorn. Right? It's a bit like airline industry. If you think about it, there are 11 airlines only that operate in India, maybe less. None of them commands a $1 billion valuation. But everybody who sells airline tickets, Make My Trip, Ease My Trip, all of these guys are unicorns. So running the airline is a different business. Selling airline tickets is a different business. Similarly to gyms, operating the gym and running the gym is a different business. Running a FITPASS model where you were asset light, capital efficient, shared economy was a different business.
Understood.
However, when we came to market, we knew competition would come. Our experience had taught us that. So we were prepared. The way we had aggregated our supply side and the way we had built our moats, the moment competition came, they all priced it at wherever we were priced, which was $24.99 a month to begin with, because we had certain assumptions. Today, we're priced at $999 a month. September 2015, we were $24.99 a month. 1st of January 2016, we dropped to $999. Our competition got wiped out because they had priced at $24.99. Their unit economics were priced differently. Ours was priced differently. They got wiped out in the next 2-3 months. So we thought that our experience was going to help us. But when we went to people like Anirudh, the investors on the other side, they said, guys, your model is great, but so many people have failed in this model. So we don't know whether this is a good model or not. Okay. So where you thought that you had the experience and you had strategy to fend off competition, that worked against us. However, we were very clear that if we had not fended them off, then people like Anirudh would have asked us, guys, there are so many people solving this problem. It's so hyper competitive. How do we know who to back? So no matter what strategy you take, you have to be sure of why you're doing it, irrespective of what the investor thinks. Then 2016 saw the rise of people, of experienced entrepreneurs stepping into fitness for the first time. Right? Mukesh and Ankit came in and they said they will do CureFit. CureFit was to be a horizontal play looking at preventive healthcare, in which there were verticals called CultFit, which was to do with gyms. There was EatFit, which was to do with food. There was supposed to be, I'm forgetting, maybe MindFit, and there was supposed to be a CareFit, which was their GP system. So there was supposed to be a bunch of these verticals. Cult was their gyms, which was similar to anybody owning a gym, Snap Fitness, anytime, anybody owning a gym. But for the investor, it didn't matter. For them, fitness was fitness, and these guys had so much money that they didn't know what they were going to do. So at that time, we had a choice. Either we try and convince the investor that, guys, Uber is different to somebody who owns their own vehicles. Oyo is different to Hilton. Like, everything is different. So we tried to convince them, obviously, but they were not. Everybody was afraid because India is also a very illiquid investor market. We only have maybe 19, 20 large VCs. And it is not a liquid market like the West is, where you have 3,000, 4,000 VCs. So everybody will take a bet on their own. Here, it is also a lot of people talk to each other and then come in together. So the working area, the VC sphere in India is very nascent. And founders haven't become VCs yet. It is happening now. In 2015, 16, founders had not become VCs. So a lot of people with very good educational backgrounds were on the VC side, on the other side of the table, but very little real world experience. They never built a business. They did not know what it meant, what it meant to handle a cycle or handle people, anything. So to convince these guys was very difficult. Yeah, the choice was either build a business, forget about the investment, or wait for the investment and then build a business. So we chose a different go-to-market strategy. We went back to the drawing board. We said we cannot compete with Cult, who even we don't know what they will do or they will not do. So instead of playing B2C, we went B2B.
Understood. And actually, during this period, were you bootstrapped or did you raise money?
No, we raised from 2016, 17, we raised from Mumbai Angels.
Understood.
And that is the only round we've ever raised.
Wow. Then maybe I think my next question would resonate more to you in terms of which point I personally like and which I personally like touching upon is what is the benefit or how do you see bootstrapping as a concept? Right? Because a lot of people say that, okay, once I try to attain a product market fit, I try to go raise money to scale faster. There is one category of that set of people. There are other set of people who would want money to even build a product, like a hardcore tech product, right?
Yeah.
So where it's more, I wouldn't say capital intensive, but it is funding intensive where you need money to build an MVP itself or pivot it, right?
Yeah.
So in that genre, so how do you see bootstrapping as a concept and how do you, what are the benefits do you think for a founder personally as when he does a bootstrapping?
Okay. So to be very honest, bootstrapping is not something we had planned to do. And we had planned to raise funds, attract very good talent, solve a big problem, do it fast, fail fast, pivot fast. That is what our initial plan was. Bootstrapping was a consequence of market dynamics. When the market was not favorable, but we were convinced that this is what we have to solve, and our conviction was not based on raising money. When your conviction is not based on raising money, you will find a solution, right? There was a story when we read in the Panchatantra when we were kids, right? Where there is a will, there is a way. So if you're willed to solving the problem, you will find a way. So bootstrapping became a consequence for us. It was not a strategy for us, but it was something that did not scare us. Today, after being bootstrapped for so long, there are lots of benefits. I think it is a very efficient way of growing, where you're more agile, you're more nimble. You can define your work culture and your organizational culture without having to worry about investors or them and what they would think is their way, what they see in the other portfolio companies. Little lesser comparison, so you can build a more family-like organization versus a very cutthroat driven organization. I'm not saying anything is bad, but this would my personal experience is. Second, obviously, you're able to retain more of the equity. So you're able to distribute more of the equity as you want to people who are actually contributing, which are your employees, which is your team, which is etc. And you can use it. So obviously, in a company like FITPASS, what happens is we went through so many cycles that what we're seeing now is not how we were during COVID, right? So that time your equity was also maybe in somebody's eyes worthless because nobody knew when COVID would, when the lockdown would reopen, what would happen. But at least you have the tools to work with. So I think bootstrapping, and then it teaches you frugality. It definitely teaches you how to better allocate resources, how to better allocate time, and how to lead from the front. There is nothing to hide behind. When you're bootstrapped, you can't hide behind anybody. You can't say it was the investor's fault or we didn't get enough money, or there's nothing to hide behind. It is you and your team. So everything is transparent. So that I think teaches you a lot and braces you for a longer journey. If you want to build an organization that lasts or is a legacy, it will go through many cycles, like you said. Like in 7 years, we've gone through 3 or 4 cycles, which is ridiculous. Right? That is not the curve in which cycles should come. It should be at least 5-7 years. So we should have seen a boom and then maybe a bust. We've seen bust, rise, bust, rise, bust, rise. So definitely bootstrapping helps you prepare. So now when the boom comes, hopefully we will be very well geared to capitalize in that phase of growth.
Perfect, Akshay. So, I mean, I think that's what I keep telling my founders, my portfolio companies also, right? So it is not just only bootstrap founders have responsibility or take owners, but even the execution still lies with the founders and the team, right? So at any day, we are there to support. The investors are there to support, but they can't run the show, right? It's just the founders that they have to do it. Very interesting conversation. So maybe one slight follow-up question to this is that when you transition from B2B, right? And when typically a person is also bootstrapped, where your B2B conversion cycles are a little longer. So then how do you manage your capital, right? So that was the question that comes from the audience also, but you're happy to get your views on that.
That is a great question. So I'm going to be very frank. It might hurt some people, it might not. India is a country that the corporate India for some reason is very, very miserly. Right. In the West, right? And there is a very different decision-making process that happens that you witness here. People don't like to take risks. So there are two types of decision-making, right? One is either it's gain maximizing or there's loss minimizing.
Loss minimizing. Yeah.
So India, for some reason, corporate India follows loss minimizing. They don't follow gain maximizing. Okay. So in the West, even if I'm going to just say this randomly, but don't hold it. But even if I'm in HR tech, right? Like where there's a bunch of HR tech players, I'll always find somebody who will give me a corporate who's willing to give me revenue because they understand that business means somebody needs revenue to run their business, to deliver service, to run a team. They will give you revenue. India, they will tell you, take my credential. Once you get my logo, you will get 7 more businesses. Right? And they will never have the ability to give you money. So you really have to convince them, be direct with them, maybe have some good luck favoring you at that time. But to generate revenue takes some time. But the good side of this is India is also then very lazy in their decision making. If one person does it, then everybody else is willing to do it. So everybody doesn't want to apply their mind. They want to, oh, you have a contract there. It is cut and copy paste. Okay, let me cut, copy paste it. And then if you get a big fish to begin with, then the smaller fish are easy, which was a strategy we did employ. Our first big contract was State Bank of India, which is India's largest bank. Once you have a PSU large bank, then everybody else follows suit. And that is what happened today. We command a bunch of banks, etc., etc. So yeah, so how did we manage money? So we never stopped our B2C segment. Our unit economics are very good. They've always been good. We have a vision that Zomato and Swiggy deliver food to you at home in 100 rupees. Uber and Ola take you from point A to point B in 100 rupees. So your workout couldn't cost you more than 100 rupees. So which is why we wanted to make sure that people can work out at 100 rupees. So 1,000 rupees was our membership price. This 1,000 rupees, where you can do unlimited workouts, this 1,000 rupees ensured that we also had positive unit economics. That is what helped us run the business, which is what every investor, everybody talks about, right? Unit economics, unit economics, unit economics. This is what separated us initially when we fended off competition. This is what allowed us to scale because this is where revenue, there is no better investor than your customer. If you can get that guy and they can repeat on your platform, and even though getting repeats was challenging for us because at that time, India did not allow recurring payments. You had to convince Anirudh every month that, boss, you worked out last month, you had a great time, your time for renewal is here, you must renew. And this is monthly, right? Gyms used to sell you yearly. So they have to have this conversation once with you every year. We had to have this conversation every month. So it was this cohort that allowed us to scale. And once we got some contracts, then also, like I'll be even more honest, it's not like you get the contract and date to your revenue starts, right? You get the contract, there'll be tech integration, there'll be operational processes to be done. There'll be people who will get promoted, people who will get transferred. There'll be many things that you will face even while you're doing it. Vendor onboarding will take some time. So during all of that time, your core business has to work for you. So our core was working. And because the core was working, that is why we were able to win these big contracts. Right. So the question that Anirudh asked me first, cult was there. Cult comes everywhere. Yep. They participate in every RFP, but we won all the contracts. Why? Because our core worked, our product was good. Okay, think about it as this: when B2B, why a corporate invests in you or partners with you, they're taking a big risk as a startup, right? And you're not a very well-funded startup. There isn't a lot of media blitz about you, right? You're somebody who's playing in the shadows. They don't know about you, yet they are putting their brand name with yours. So if their customer goes through a bad experience, they're not going to come and say FITPASS sucked. They're going to come and say SBI sucked, right? SBI doesn't want to put that risk. For the big revenue that they are giving you, they're not getting any equity in return. So they are helping you establish.
Right.
So then you have a bunch of stakeholders to manage, right? From their compliance team, the regulation team, their customer service, their marketing, their product. All of these guys have to get convinced that you are awesome and you're better than the guy throwing more money in the market. So that takes some time. And that confidence you only have when you know your core is working. Only when we were sure that the core was working, the product was good, the tech was good, we were agile, could we go to the corporate segment.
Absolutely. I think this question was actually the best aspect, which is a wonderful thing, so that we had a very meaningful conversation from this. And one point that I would want to drive out, which you mentioned about the positive unit economics, right? Because now we are in a chakkar of cash burn, right? Now cash burn is like a fancy word. So I burn because I want to grow faster. I want to spending on growth capital, which is marketing. I don't know what is the ROAS, etc. So, but all this chakkar you have clarified, then they're brutal, saying that unit economics matters, and that's what you cracked it, right? Very wonderfully said, which sets an example for the entrepreneurs also on the board, right? So on that, and I think Akshay, my next question or conversation would you would be able to relate it better, because as you're also an angel investor, right? So we as an angel investors, we know the market, we know the product, we know the moat, value prop, etc., everything, right? But still, we bet on founders, we bet on the team, we bet on people, we bet on culture, right? So what are your thoughts on people and culture, and how has it grown or groomed in FITPASS?
That's a very, very good question. And I think culture is not something that is, it evolves, right? 2015 was a different culture for us. 2022 was a different culture for us. It is a reflection of where you are in your growth journey, both as founders, as humans, and collectively as a team. So everybody, when we were young, people weren't married, they didn't have kids, they didn't have family, they didn't have obligations. The maturity was different. So it was a different culture. Today, where people are married, people have kids, it's a different culture. But it is also reflective of the organizational maturity that has transpired. So so do we bet on founders? Yes, you have to bet on founders, because it is ultimately their ability to deal with the daily pressures, the daily opportunities, to be able to conceptualize the opportunity. The market exists for everyone to monetize, but somebody has to be creative enough to find ways of monetizing it. And that is where the founders, the team, the mindset, all of that comes in, which is why the angels tend to bet on their ability, their aptitude. And the culture is something that everybody must focus on from day one. But I'll be honest, when you're in growth, when you're focused on running the business, there are lots of times it takes a backseat, which it should not, which has been a failure on our part also. Lots of times our culture has taken a backseat. Lots of times I can guarantee that my team will also say that we became very focused on growth and very focused on numbers, and maybe it was not in the best interest of employee well-being. But you have to recognize that when that does happen, you can take a step back, you can try and correct it, you can try and rectify it. So fortunately or unfortunately, this lies with my co-founder, who's a much better human being than I am. So she runs the culture of the organization. And yes, that is something that we deeply focus on now. But yeah, there have been phases where we were lax about it.
Understood. Thanks, Akshay. A question from Saurabh. Maybe I'll just take it up. So it's Saurabh's point is that 5% is only online sales, irrespective of any product sales, right? And 95% is offline. Then it becomes difficult for investors to convince investors, saying that how are you going to succeed, right? Akshay, maybe I'll just quickly share my thoughts, and please feel free to add on your thoughts also to this. So, Saurabh, basically, you're right. 5% is online and 95% is offline market. Still, your look and feel, people go buy products. But now I would say that online, one, it's faster, right? Easier, convenient, right? Convenience is built. And the customer mindset is changing nowadays, because we invest in a lot of startups which are into online and offline, omni-channel, and only certain things only online. So we do prefer both, and it also depends on the product that they sell. And it is very unique, right? Akshay could be able to brief on the fitness part, but on others, on any D2C or any consumer product, certain things, even, I mean, if you ask my dad, he will go buy a TV only at a shop. Maybe I would just order it on Amazon. If you don't like it, I just reorder. I mean, I just return it, right? So the culture has changed. It has evolved organically, both in the mindset of a customer and also in the mindset of a company or an entrepreneur. So I would see it's a boon only. It's very easy to convince investors, because we know that how big is the offline market, and how, and if you say that 5% is online, how much it was 10 years back or 5 years back, you should see that it was 0.5%. So the growth there is tremendous, and there's a scope of growth going forward also. That's what I would put from my side. Akshay, please feel free to add on if anything from your side.
For us, see, we're not a product company. We are not a hardcore tech company. We are basically tech-enabled service company, where we're offering a service, but we need tech to offer that service. Right? So for us, we have no choice but to be online. Right? But if you think about it, it's like selling travel. Right? Travel is being something that is being sold for generations. Right? Everyone knows travel operators or travel agents who helped sell holidays in Spain or holidays in Switzerland. It's an experience you're selling. So we're selling an experience, and the only way to convince you is online. One thing that works very well with online is that you can target, you can become intelligent, you understand your customer better, you understand their preferences better, which does not happen in offline. However, even the offline business ultimately grows on how well you deliver the service. If you look at any market, even if I look at a cycle shop, it's not one cycle shop in the market, there'll be 7. Everybody has customers, sabka ghar chal raha hai, everybody's making money, everybody's child is going to school, everybody's getting educated. How? Because they keep their customers engaged and they keep them recurring. That is largely driven on service. So it does not matter online or offline. If you have recurring customers, and if you have customers who are showing up to your doorstep every time they need the service, you are a good investor pitch. It does not matter who's transacting where. If you know how to retain your customers, that is going to be the strongest point, especially for businesses that face hyper competition.
Understood. Fair point, Akshay. So maybe we'll take one last question from Shiv, right? And maybe then let's deep dive into 2 other questions which are non-entrepreneurial or non-business focused, so that people get to understand things that would factor into become a successful entrepreneur, right? So a question from Shiv is that how in B2C market, how did you crack your first 1,000 customers, or how did you scale from 1,000 to 100,000? Typical question. I think you would have answered 10,000 times.
This is a great question. So I think for us, a lot of the ecosystem helped. I'll tell you what I mean by that. In 2016-17, when we started growing, one was we were breaking a big problem that the Indian ecosystem Indian consumer was facing. 50% of India is between 18 and 35. It's a young population. The average salary is actually 25 to 30,000 rupees a month. Gyms were priced at 40,000 rupees a year. So this guy wants to get fit because he wants to wear fast fashion. They think that is what their role models, the cricketers, the celebrities, everybody is talking about fitness. Even a condom ad is shot in a gym, not in a bedroom. Green tea ads are shot with people working out, not with a cup of steam coming out of it. Kellogg's special case telling you you'll get fit. Everybody's telling you to get fit. Nobody's telling you how, or is making it affordable. So we were solving a big problem. Suddenly a 40,000 rupee gym or a 2 lakh rupee gym or a studio was available at 999 a month. So that was a big pull to begin with. So, which is basically the business model, right? Shared economy, asset light. Like you can book an Uber for 100 rupees, but a taxi you won't get for 100 rupees ever. So one was that. Second was because everybody was telling you to get fit, it was top of mind already. So we didn't have to go out and monetize, educate people. Some problems that early players like Flipkart, etc., have to do. They had to educate people on what e-commerce meant and then go and monetize it. So education was not our problem. Then people like CureFit came. They invested more money in educating the market, saying that okay, fitness is important. Fitness is important. So we became a very obvious solution. Third is virality. So we were focusing on big cities, right? Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore. We actually scaled in tier 2, not tier 2, but like smaller cities, Jaipur, Ahmedabad, Hyderabad, where people are more aspirational. They also have more time on their hands. Hyderabad, our growth was exponential. Our CAC went down from, usually our CAC used to be around 174 rupees a customer, and went down to 70, 72 rupees. Because every one person was getting 3 people together.
Yes,
So
sir.
these are some things that we did not predict, we did not plan for, but we realized that we were mistakenly targeting tier 1 cities or metros. Real India, real aspiration resides in tier 2, tier 3 cities. And one big example of that is Baba Ramdev. And his followers, Baba Ramdev is somebody who woke up India to being fitter. Everybody's waking up at 6 a.m. doing pranayam and doing exercises. That man did it single-handedly. I'm not saying I'm a fan or I'm not a fan, but he did it. There is a movement. Right? People started eating better or whatever. They started feeling better. They started getting physically active. They started moving. Most of those guys are tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. Most of the guys getting fit and aspiring to be part of our NDA or defense force are tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. So aspiration is actually there. That is what we did not realize initially. Now we do. Now we're present in 40 cities.
Wow. Right. Superb. So, I mean, Akshay, thanks a lot. Maybe two little generic question going a little off, right? So, I mean, I drive the portfolio operations here at IPB. So I day in, day out work closely with the founders of my portfolio companies, right? So I know the struggles that they go through or how difficult is everybody's life, but entrepreneurs' life in general, I get to see with my close lens, right? So how do you really unwind or how do you maintain like sanity to get back, rejuvenate, and get back to work? So how do you do that? What do you do apart from FitPass or getting fitter?
Okay, so we've had some terrible times in the business, but a lot of people feel that timing is key, being in the right place, right time, etc. Somebody's commented. I was just about to say this point. It is not that. One thing that allows us in dark times or difficult times to keep a positive mindset. And being a sportsman, one thing that we learned or was coached into us was your mindset, right? If your mindset is correct, your ability to make decisions is better. If you're fatigued and you are not in the best frame of mind, you may or may not make the best decisions, right? And when you don't make the best decisions, it is not just you're impacting an organization, you're impacting a team that trusts you to lead them. So you have to focus on the mindset. Now, whatever you have to do to keep your mindset positive, you have to do. One big thing I used to do, I still do, is in dark times or in difficult times or in good times, go back and check if given the information you had, would you have made the same decision? Yes or no? Did you follow the right process? Yes or no? And this is what even somebody like MS Dhoni keeps saying, right? Forget about the result. Just follow the process, right? So if you're doing that, and if you look back, because Warren Buffett also said, right? Like the rearview mirror is always clearer than the windshield. It's always easy to look back and say, why didn't I do this? Or why didn't I do that? Or why did somebody not do that? But given the information you had at that time, did you make the decision? And would you make that again? If you will make that again, there is nothing to feel bad about. There's nothing to feel sad about. It is what you could do and you've done your best. And then that means you have a new problem, now you have to solve it again. So one is that, so to keep a positive mindset and to keep checking your decisions. If there was something you would have done differently, please learn from, make a note of it in your diary. And next time you're faced with a problem, think thrice before you take a decision. Don't be impulsive. After that, you need a vent, whatever your vent is, right? And whether it is sport, whether it is kickboxing, whether it is a walk, whether it is do something that improves you a little bit, whether it is reading something that you do that incrementally improves or changes you. And then don't bring work home. Just don't do that. And if you enjoy what you do, that's fantastic. So my father says this, that if you don't enjoy your weekends, change your friends. If you don't enjoy your Mondays, change your work. And so if you enjoy what you do and you are rejuvenated by what you do, then you are not exhausted, right? So then when you come home, you bring your 100% to your family. If your work is exhausting you and you're tired, then you're not being your 100% at home. And if that is not happening, then this entire cycle at some point will spiral. So you must really enjoy what you do. Unfortunately, India makes the cost of failure very high. You cannot come back and say, I failed or my startup shut down, or because everybody, even an auntie in a shadi will judge you. So unfortunately, cost of failure is very high, which is why the societal pressures are high. But I would advise everyone to not like give into
Worry
that.
about.
Yeah, like I know it's easier said than done, but that is something. When you chose to become an entrepreneur, there are certain things you chose to be on one side of the line. Now you have to back it up. So if people have views, then just let it be. Don't let it get to you.
Perfect, Akshay. Love to chat more, but in the interest of time, I think I'll just have to wrap it up with the last question, right? So, as a lot of entrepreneurs are there in this call, or aspiring entrepreneurs are there, or someone who's related to the ecosystem are there. So, what would be your 2 or 3 book or podcast suggestion that you would generally suggest to people, or which has benefited you personally on your professional journey too?
Okay, so usually a lot of these books, people think of them as self-help books, but there are certain books that I really like. One is called The Little Prince. That has nothing to do with work. It has something to do with imagination, and it is a very small book. The other one is Never Split the Difference. It's by Chris Voss. He was an FBI negotiator for kidnappings. So he explains like he could never say the solution can be win-win, right? That okay, you keep half the body and return half the body to me. He needs the kidnapped person back in whole without having to pay ransom. So how do you negotiate with that mindset? So it's called Never Split the Difference. Then there is Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant. That I think is a great book. And then there's the 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma.
Right. Perfect, Akshay. Thanks a lot for making it to the session. And thanks a lot to all the other people who have patiently been hearing us out for the last maybe 40 odd minutes, right? So thanks a lot to everyone, and looking forward to interact with you all.